Once again, welcome to the Room 2 session. It's exactly 2 o'clock. We'll be starting with our first presentation. To all the presenters, Mr. Edward and Ms. Nicola, will you be able to please switch on the cameras for a while, probably, or throughout, whichever suits you, and also introduce yourself. Thank you. The stage is over to you.
Thank you. I hope you can all see my slides.
Yes, we can.
Okay. How are you, colleagues? My name is Edward, and I'll be co-presenting with Nicola. Unfortunately, our colleague Neil won't be able to join us today. We'll be talking about the lessons learned from supporting staff and students with the emergency remote teaching and learning at our institution, Rhodes University. So I'll briefly give you the background of our institution. So Rhodes University is a small institution, traditionally face-to-face. It is a research-intensive, third urban university with a diversified pool of students of about 9,000, including postgrads, and the staff, they range around 500 permanent. We also have the issues of infrastructure, unequal access to resources, water and internet, and all other socioeconomic aspects. And in response, our institution adopted the mission and values that are equity-oriented in response to the challenges we have of unequal access. The shift to blended learning. So before the pandemic, there was blended learning. Since I had mentioned it was a face-to-face. Then with the COVID-19, we had to shift to emergency remote teaching and learning. And this happened through a small team for about 5 team members, EdTech staff members. 2 are permanent specialists and 3 are tech support. And we teach and manage the support module-based learning management system. We call it RI Connected. And we also support other softwares for research, teaching, and learning. And before the pandemic, we also had the water issues, like I had mentioned. And in response, the institution had to adopt and install, set up a mobile app. So there's a combination of the web-based and the mobile app. Over to you, Nicola.
Thank you, Edward. And that is our institution, looking very empty at the moment, as you can imagine. Yeah, next slide. Yeah, this is just the DHET provision grid that we've adapted to show you that shift. So from where we are with blended learning face-to-face to where we had to shift to fully online remote. And that was quite a challenge for many staff and students alike. Okay, next slide. All right, so part of our response since...
Sorry, excuse me, Nicola. Nicola, do you have 2 devices connected?
I do. Should I close one?
Yes, please, because it's the other one is echoing in front.
Oh, sorry.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay, is that better?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay. Apologies, colleagues. So we have, part of our response, we've had aspects that have been ongoing and continuous, and others that I'll chat about, things that we've changed. The first thing that we kept consistent was our ticketing system to respond to queries, and that was very helpful for identifying things that colleagues needed more help with. How could we design better resources and walkthroughs to support them? We had online resources. We had, we emailed staff via the university mailing lists with links to our support resources. We held online consultations with individuals and departments. And we also created a RU Connected course site called RU Teaching Online, with resources that was, through that, it wasn't just about putting up resources, but also facilitating a community that we were serving. And then having, and the next part, I'll talk about how we changed things. Because like many of our colleagues, that initial course site ended up becoming quite long over the period of 2020. Okay, next slide, Edward. Right, so we started out in March 2020. We had hybrid workshops, so workshops that people could attend both online and face-to-face. And then we shifted to many synchronous webinars, but we found that staff were becoming overwhelmed and attendance started becoming started dropping off. And so we decided to offer more strategically timed synchronous webinars and spend more time focusing on designing well-developed resources. We also include opportunities for lecturers to share their practices and experiences, because that's very important as part of the community. And also often lecturers like to hear about what their colleagues are doing, and they tend to also take advice from their colleagues. We also had to improve the functionality of our LMS. We did an upgrade. We also had an archive process, and all these things also required additional support. As I mentioned, we decided to spend time more strategically and design better online resources. So we developed an introduction to Are You Connected, our LMS for teachers, and not just and how we put those together was also modeling good online course design. And then we had introduction to Are You Connected for students. We also sent emails out to HODs in addition to the university mailing list, but we opted for shorter, regular emails, because when we were doing the online consultations, we found that colleagues were very overwhelmed. You don't mean to have a look, but people, switch screens, and then you catch their email inbox and you see 3,000 unread emails. So it was a very clear indication that people were very overwhelmed and needed, they were battling to cope with large amounts of information. So we had shorter, regular emails. Then we also introduced some new softwares that were really, we had to think about our context and what people needed. One of the things was around, invigilated remote assessments. So we used the Invigilator app, which some colleagues may have heard of. And we're kind of using it more now. And then we got the IntelliBoard plugin for analytics, so the lecturers could get a better sense of student activity online. And then ConnectYard, which allows students to decide whether or not they'd like to receive email notifications via WhatsApp of important announcements. Okay, next slide, and over to you, Edward. And that's just a examples from our resources, our course sites that we created to support lecturers. Okay, Edward, I see you still muted. You want to take this one? So what we found is basically that the support needs differed quite a lot for staff and students, and we needed a variety of support strategies and resources. We also found that supporting emergency remote teaching versus online on campus was quite different. So for example, lecturers could Zoom quite easily with their students and have students participating when the students were on campus, where students were, when they were remote and at home, it was much more difficult. there was a lot of focus, I think, initially on support and I think the tools rather than pedagogy. It was also very difficult to get colleagues to come to sessions and things that looked at pedagogic strategies. They were more interested in the practical how-tos. Edward, do you want to take the staff experiences?
Yes, thank you, Nicola. Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Yes.
I can hear you now. You can just make your slide bigger.
Oh, sorry about that. Oh man. Yeah. So for both staff and students, remember we mentioned in the background that we have the unequal access. We have a diverse pool of students and staff. So we implemented, in response to the challenges and the help they need, we had to implement a pedagogy of care where we'll be considerate with the issues of access, with the issues of the broadband. So when we're creating resources to share with the students, we have to, and the lecturers, we have to make sure they are adaptable, they can be reused again. Yeah. Is there anything I'm missing there, Nicola?
I think also just maybe to link to the care is a trauma-informed approach to helping, to supporting staff. So MICE in MUT, and I can share a link to that article. We were very much influenced by the trauma-informed approaches last year as we were supporting people and realizing how too much information can actually be a cognitive overload and how you also need to create trust. Trust, fostering trust, mutuality, and all those important principles of a trauma-informed approach. Yeah, we also had, and that helped us to build a good rapport with staff who we found were often very demotivated by the lack of student feedback and also low engagement that they were seeing online. And, online, staff realized requires a lot more work, as Prof. Laura Lard has also shared about. Then the student experiences for us were kind of a bit harder to gauge, but lecturers shared about it. And their main concern, and still is, the difficulty in engaging students in online learning. Also, often students have reported feeling that they feel lonely, they miss their peers, they miss on-campus engagement. Some students do very well and they prefer online, whereas some do not. And again, back to what Edward has mentioned, this is to do with the diverse student body. Okay, next slide. And then our way forward is, continuing to be responsive, adaptable, and there's a need, we believe, in context-sensitive approaches to supporting teaching and learning. We also believe in low-tech principles for maximum accessibility. Again, the trauma-informed approach, we see people as coming first. And what we foresee is, it's going to be quite challenging, but transitioning from emergency remote teaching to this hybrid future, we foresee some, infrastructural challenges initially. Then the death of the lecturer actually requires quite a lot of pedagogic support. So how do we support lecturers teaching face-to-face in new ways? I think it's going to be one of our key considerations in the next few months. And then students are very accustomed to emergency remote teaching and the flexibility and online materials that went with that. So it's lecturers will need to continue some of these aspects going forwards. There's also been an increase in guest lecturers from other universities, and very often, the colleagues forget about them, and whereas these people actually need support as well. We've got an uncertain future. At the moment, there's a lot of vaccine hesitancy, but we've been building the ship as we sail. We always told colleagues, we're building the ship as we sail. We created that, sense of, we're in it as much as they are. And we don't always have all the answers, but hopefully we can build with a better plan going forwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicola, and thank you, Edward. Thank you for a very insightful presentation, in fact. And you know, we're talking about the emerging concepts right now, like your care and trauma-informed approaches, and your responsiveness to this post-COVID situation, in fact, and also and the difference between the face-to-face and the pre-COVID situation and the post-COVID situation. It's entirely different, and we'll have to swim through this, in fact. Anyway, okay, so I'll just open up the floor for a few questions. We have 5 minutes for question and answers. You can just raise your hand or type in M on the chat, so that I'll observe it and I'll give you an option to ask. Thank you. Any questions? Yes, Mrs. Makanya, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, colleagues. Thank you to the presentation, a wonderful presentation on how you try to avert a bad situation and you use the different models. I have a question on diversity of students. You said you have over 9,000 students, and then I would like you I would like to draw attention to the diversity of students. I know you have international students from the continent. How did you address that? Did you get any challenge or ways of combating low engagement or in that regard? And secondly, I didn't hear you talking about other services where you connected to the library and other support services to assist the lecturers and the students. Thank you.
Okay, so we deal with supporting the kind of software side of things and the LMS. The library, we did kind of work with them on a few things. There was a textbook project. Again, one of these software companies that promise you free trials and then afterwards, after you implement it, say, yes, we'd like 100 Rand per textbook, thank you. So that was not very, I think, helpful in the long run. Often they, give you the freemium and then take it away, which is not very, it's not sustainable. The other thing is that the IT&S, so Information Technology Services Department, they dealt with the data and student devices and all that. So we didn't want to talk to that. We'd rather, decided to focus on the support and what we did to support students and lecturers. But I do know that the international students and students from other African countries, they didn't have 0 ratings for educational sites or data provisioning in the same way as South African students. So I know that was a challenge, and I think every course, depending on the combination of students, I think had their own challenges. Yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Nicola.
Cool, pleasure.
Thank you, Nicola. Any more questions? Ursula, are you asking a question?
No.
Okay, no. We have a minute more. Any more questions? Okay, in the absence of any more questions, I would like to thank Ms. Nicola and Mr. Edward for their insightful presentation. Thank you so much. I would like to now call upon Prof. Naidoo from MUT for the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Bibin. I'm just going to try and upload my screen.
You have 1 minute. Okay, you can start.
Okay, can we see my slides?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Biban.
Prof. Naidoo, you may go ahead with your introduction, please. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much, Biban. Thank you for the opportunity of sharing my experience during this time of our teaching and learning under the circumstances. So my topic is teaching engineering technology on an online platform. Sorry. As an introduction, I would like to say that engineering is an applications field. So the outcomes need to be assessed by physical means that are measurable. A normal formula that we use is in terms of teaching and learning is in a ratio of 2 theory is to 1 practical. And MUT has implemented a blended teaching and learning framework. In terms of our quality assurance compliance, internally we need to comply with our MUT QMD. Nationally, we need to comply with the rules of ICSA, and specifically our graduate attributes. So engineering qualifications need to comply with the graduate attributes. In Design Projects 3, we are assessing competency of application of knowledge and skills that are acquired in a total of about 24 subjects in the program, with Design Projects 3 being the final subject which tests all those competencies. In terms of an overview of the module assessment, assessment 1 is basically a proposal which is assessed against your graduate attribute 7, where we look at sustainability and impact of engineering activity. Then we look at assessment 2, which is a presentation, and there we're testing against graduate attribute 6, which looks at professional and technical communication. Assessment 3 is looking at the project management skills, which is assessed against graduate attribute 8, which is looking at individual and teamwork. Now, you'll notice that in engineering specifically, the focus is on individual and teamwork to get an entire project commissioned. Then we look at assessment 4, which is an artifact. Here we're looking at graduate attribute 3, which is assessing the ability to do engineering design. Above that, we have a weekly, I have a weekly reporting from students, which starts from the very first week to the final week, whereby each member of a team needs to account for work being done on a weekly basis. Because it's a continuous assessment subject, meaning there is no examination. Apart from the 4 milestones that we have in terms of the assessments, continuous monitoring is done by the weekly reporting. And group work, according to ICSA, is required because, and this creates additional challenges. The reason is you can have a variation of 3 students in a group to a maximum of 5. We look at the first stage, which is a proposal stage. Here we're assessing the sustainability of the project. We look at assessing the impact of engineering activity on the society, economy, industrial environment, physical environment. And it's assessed against a prescribed template, which is basically a Word document. This provides evidence in terms of archiving for quality assurance purposes. This is actually assessed against a prescribed rubric, which is our marking guide, which needs to adhere to our national compliance with Engineering Council of South Africa. In terms of the proposal compliance, hereby we want to look at the authenticity of student work in an online mode. At this stage here, all student details will be on a document with photographs. A literature review is allocated individually to the respective members of the group. Tasks are distributed in areas of society, economy, entrepreneurship, physical environment, and industrial environment. So each student has to choose one aspect, and they're going to account for it in the document that they actually present. Tasks associated to engineering standards they are distributed to students again. The tasks associated to engineering problem solving strategy, which are distributed. And then we look at the bill of items. Again, each item of the components that they're using is allocated to a specific student. The student needs to account for it appropriately. The next stage, second stage, which is the presentation stage. Here we're assessing the ability of the student to communicate professionally, communicate technically, communicate effectively in an engineering context. It's assessed against, again, a prescribed template, which is your slides and a recorded video. This here again forms the evidence for quality assurance purposes. And we got a prescribed rubric to comply with the requirements of the Engineering Council of South Africa, specifically related to the graduate attribute. And in terms of the actual compliance, all student details is going to be on the video, going to be available with a video recording showing all the students. The tasks are distributed to each strategic component of the project, example, a PV cell or a battery. The slides to be designed and presented online. The recording is physically focused on identifying student or students on their respective roles, individual and teamwork, team project work accomplished. We need to look at the ability of technical communication skills, the level of professionalism displayed by the students, and to look at the project layout. The third stage, which is a project management stage, here we're assessing the ability of the student to work individually in a project and work in a team in a project. And again, we have a prescribed template which provides the evidence for quality assurance purposes, and it's assessed against a prescribed rubric, which is our marking guide, to comply with the requirements of EXA. The project management compliance, as group chair and individual members, there need to be accountability for the actual duties performed, the technical competence acquired, the project planning duties undertaken, troubleshooting skills acquired, fault-finding duties undertaken, techniques of root cause analysis acquired, and accountability for teamwork versus individual work needs to be justified. The final stage, which is your artifact stage, here we're assessing the ability of the student to perform procedural design of components, systems, works, products, or processes to meet the requirements of your engineering standards, your engineering codes of practice, and your engineering legislation. Now, although it's a student project, it is taken on an approach by looking at it as a project that they're really going to commission. And as a matter of interest, since I'm talking about the artifact stage, yeah, a project will be physically available, which needs to be looked at from an entrepreneurial approach. And here again, it's assessed against a template which is prescribed, which forms the evidence for quality assurance purposes, a prescribed rubric, which is your marking guide to comply with the requirements of EXA. In terms of the compliance for the artifact stage, here we're looking at authenticity of student work, again on an online mode, whereby the engineering design tasks undertaken by group chair and individual members, the physical construction tasks, which are divided and were undertaken by each group member, which is your group chair and your individual members, preliminary testing duties undertaken by each of the members again, your final and endurance testing duties undertaken, earthing and protection duties undertaken. So as we can see that although it's a group project, but the documentation, the templates are configured in a way whereby every single student has to account for what is being done. In conclusion, students who fail an assessment are allowed a second attempt. The first attempt assessments are moderated. Second attempt assessments are also moderated. If a student fails any of the 4 assessments, he or she fails the entire module. This is according to the graduate attribute rules, which is according to ICSA, the Engineering Council of South Africa. All submissions are online to the examiner. All submissions from the examiner to the moderator is also done online. And all moderators are engineering practitioners registered with ICSA. All rubrics, templates, protocols, and in Design Projects 3 are finalized in consultation with our industry partners or actually prospective employers. Templates are updated every semester to avoid rote learning and students copying work from previous semesters. This was found a long time ago, and over the years that's been rectified. And especially now in the online mode that we are working, we're going to make 100% sure that there is no duplication of work, and also to avoid students repeating the same sort of projects that were done previously. Project specifications are updated every semester to create innovation. Focus on Design Projects 3 is to solve two critical national and international challenges in an electrical engineering context, which are associated with electricity and water. And in that, I can conclude here with a picture of a project, which was one of the projects done this very semester, whereby you can see that the project is there on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side, the student is conducting tests. This is the type of evidence that I expect to be on an ongoing basis presented at different stages and on a weekly basis in the reporting that is submitted. Thank you very much, colleagues.
Thank you, Prof. Naidoo. Thank you so much for an insightful presentation. Handling these design projects on a face-to-face context itself is a mammoth task. So imagine doing it online. We can really understand how tedious it is going to be. It was, in fact.
Exactly. Definitely, yes.
Yes. I'll give opportunity to ask questions, especially since it's a lab-oriented or hands-on oriented assessment that has been done right now. So any of the participants who are interested in asking questions, the floor is yours. Prof, let me go ahead. I just would like to ask you, I'm very inquisitive in asking, how did you manage the feedback session? Was it completely online? Was it like your stage, your stage of artifact, your stage of proposals? How did you manage the feedback session between the group? Were they all online, or did they come face to face? You maintained the social distance, or how did it work? And you're talking about weekly by weekly. Each stage has been assessed, and there's a rubric that you manage with the groups. It's a mammoth task. We also run projects here. We understand that. So how did you manage that, Prof?
Thank you for that, Biban. Actually, design project has become part of my daily life. It's a 7-day job. I enjoy it. It takes up a lot of my time. But I'm answering your question. I have contact lectures where students come in the lower numbers to see me in the lab. Then I have online lectures, and even over the weekends, we spend time maybe on WhatsApp or on the email system. But I'm in contact with students on an ongoing basis. I do not allow any my students know clearly that if there's any issue, however small or big they feel it is, they know that they can contact me on my phone, they can contact me on email, or whichever way, so that I nip it in the bud so the problems do not accumulate. That is one of the primary ways of me actually getting this subject like Design Projects 3 under control. On a weekly basis, they submit a report. So by going through those, I can see clearly those that are putting in effort and those that are slackening. And the ones that are slackening, recently I've had to actually refer them to the HOD, set up meetings to go with the HOD and speak to them, because the last thing I want is for my students to end up with issues and for me to feel that I did not do what I had to do. So I go that extra mile, and that's the only way I can get it done. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof, for that response. Ms. Ramaligela, I do acknowledge your hand. Please go on. Please ask your question. Ms. Ramaligela?
Biman, I think the mic is switched off.
Oh, okay. Please unmute yourself. Hi, Ms. Ramaligela. Can you please unmute yourself? We'll come back to her. Any other questions from the floor? Hi, Ms. Ramaligela. I can see your hand. Any other questions?
Sorry, I didn't raise up my hand. I was trying because I'm going to present now. I'm using somebody's laptop. Mine is not working. Now I was trying to get in. Sorry.
Okay. No, it's fine. I've got your presentation, ma'am. You're covered on the side. No problem.
Sorry, Prof, it's Nyondo here. Maybe just to commend the work that you have done with the student. Just a quick question, Prof. Have you thought of basically, do you think, for instance, having a simulated environment for such projects would be beneficial for the students? Or have you thought of incorporating, such ideas into the build-up of the project?
Thank you for that, Mr. Nyondo. Actually, in an engineering context, simulation is part of the project outcomes. Because actually, if you look at as an overview for engineering projects, the first stage is your literature study, then you go into simulation, then you go into a prototype, and then you go into a real project that you commission. So the simulation is part of the process. Yes, thank you.
Thanks, Prof.
And sorry, just a matter of interest, we use, for our electronics, we use Proteus or Tina Lab, where they simulate the circuits on the computer, and then they construct that circuit, and then they can put the other physical components together to commission the final project. Yes, thank you, Mr. Nyondo.
Okay, thanks, Prof.
Thanks, Nyondo, for the question. Any more questions? Okay. In the absence of any more questions, I would like to thank Prof. Naidoo again. Thank you so much, Prof. We'll be going on to the next presentation by Ms. Ramaligela. I hope I'm pronouncing your name properly.
Thank you, Mr. George. And
All right,
thanks,
no problem.
colleagues, for your time. Thank you. Bye.
Okay, bye. You can unshare your presentation, Prof. Thank you so much. Ms. Ramaligela, are you ready? Can I?
Yes, can you project on your side?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, I'm trying to do that.
Thank you.
Is this the one, ma'am?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Let me just put it on slide.
Does it has only 2 slides?
Yes, it only shows 2 slides now.
No. Let me try to project on my site. I managed to get a laptop.
Okay, ma'am. No problem. You can share it, ma'am, now?
Yes. I haven't used Team. Can you assist me on that in the arrow?
Okay, ma'am. If you look at the icon on the top, you will have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think just next to the leave, you see that red icon. You will find something with an arrow on the top. Can you see that icon? On your right-hand side, on the top.
No, I made a full screen. Let me remove the full screen.
Just next to leave, there is a share content. It's an icon with an arrow that's projecting to the top. Yeah, probably you can click onto it.
The open share tray.
Sorry, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Is it showing?
I think so, ma'am. I think it's coming up. Yes, it's ma'am. You can put it on slideshow. At the very bottom.
Is it sharing?
Yes, ma'am. You can press done onto that, and you probably it will. Yes, you can put it on slideshow, ma'am, if it's possible. Yes, that's right.
I'm using somebody's
it's okay,
laptop.
ma'am.
Then it's so difficult to
Yes,
use somebody.
We
It's
understand.
fine.
Yes.
Thank you very much, colleagues, for giving me this opportunity to share my experience on this assessment. I hope everyone will share the same sentiments as I will be discussing some of the challenges and how others I just managed to mitigate them. Hoping that when I finish the presentation, others they will come in to share a little bit of their experience to assist wherever. I would say these were some of the challenges that need collaboration, and everyone will really agree with me that COVID-19 has just surprised us with so many things that we were not prepared for. We were busy dragging our feet, enjoying the face-to-face because we have planned and we already have our plans for many years. Then it was so easy, but now we have to come to a point where we have to convert whatever that we have and we have to put it on. Secondly, it was an issue of saying, how did we design our programs? Our programs, especially I'm coming from University of Limpopo and other universities, most of our programs were designed based on face-to-face, not online. Few like UNISA, yes, they had that anticipation of, or they used to use the mode. But for us, it just caught us with surprise to say you need to learn, and you need to learn very fast. And some of the things we had to learn as the road as we walk on it. And that was a challenge that I was caught on. And as you have seen in many conferences from previous conferences, issues of online, it was one of those things that even when we go to conferences, when you see somebody presenting that I teach online and so on, we'll say, okay, that is one of those things. It's fine. You can teach online. We are fine with face-to-face. And that is what we used to be content with. I think it was a comfort zone. That's why if you look at my topic, I said changing the mode of operandi, meaning that we reflect on designing the online assessment. It may mean a lot in terms of changing the mode of operandi in terms of teaching and learning. and assessment around that. But for this presentation, I'm going to look only on the issues of online assessment. What were the challenges and how some of the challenge I managed to mitigate. Others are still part of the challenges that need doesn't end. Same thing as we used to have the how to teach, and that part of teaching and learning has been there since we started teaching, and we are no longer going to talk about face-to-face. We need to talk about how to deal with online challenges when we are busy teaching and when you are doing assessment. When I'm going to talk about my reflection, I'm going to structure my reflection into 4 R's, where I said the 4 R's model of reflection. And this mode was proposed by Gibbs. And I'm going to look at it in this perspective. The first one, we will have the other one of reporting, and we will have reasoning, and we will have reconstruction. And then from there, we will look at the reporting, and I will be looking at what happened or what are the issues. And then I will be looking at the relating, and I will look at relating to make connection between the incident or the issues that has happened and the skills that I have imparted on what I had. Although this issue is a challenge because of those limitations of the training that we had in the past. Professional experience, discipline, knowledge, which I'm going to relate to, and what I have seen before, and the condition, if whether they were the same or not, what were the difference. And in this context, I'm going to relate to what was happening in face-to-face and what should happen in online. And I'm going to look at issues of, do I have the skills and knowledge to deal with this? Then those are things that I'm going to talk about. And I'm going to highlight in detail significant factors when we talk about the those incidents or issues, and also explain and show why they are important to, and also to understand those incidents and those issues, because those are the things that we deal with day to day, and those things are going to face us every day. And when I saying what is it that we will consider different perspective? What is it that we need to consider as a different perspective? And how perceive or handle this issue? And what are those ethical issues that are involved inside the online assessment? And I'm going to talk about the issues of reconstructing, reframe, how are we going to reframe or reconstruct the future practice. We have many website and online, and I remember the last speaker was talking about the issue of the website that can be used, and one of the people has asked, is it this one fit all size? But what I just observed in many of these online platforms, they don't talk to some of the field of specializations that are very difficult, which the speaker has also related to issues of building and as well as issues of medical practice, that those are some of the challenging issues. And I'm going to relate to my subject as I'm going to give the background. And the previous speaker that was who spoke before me, hello? The previous speaker who spoke before me has highlighted some of how he deals with projects or simulation. Then we talk about how would I deal with this next time? What options, and those are some of the things that I'm going to talk about. What might perhaps, if I have to deal with this issue the way I have to deal with it, and what are those supporting theories? Do we have the theories, or we talk about the TPEC that Prof. Mishra has talked about? Is it only the way that can be? But I think it has which is the issue of disciplinary knowledge. And those things are very, very important now when we have to deal with all the theories that we may talk about. And they may lead us to somewhere, but I think based on what I observed, we still need to talk a lot about these issues. And that is what I'm going to talk about. Then I'm going, basically I'm teaching one of my subjects that I'm teaching, except the honors, which is one of the module undergraduate, except the honors that we also were supposed to have that face-to-face, but currently we also have online. Then my module is more of electronics that I'm teaching, and most of the time we had some, the platform that we use a Blackboard, and we had training on how to use online and so on. I asked to my subject and the content itself, as I said, and I realized that there were so many issues that even those who designed the platform, they looked at it from the subjects that are generic or that can be able to be attended to in a simple way. Therefore, the issue of COVID-19 pandemic that has changed many of these practices that we have in terms of teaching, learning, and assessment has not been an issue that put us into a space where we call it's a void space where no one knows where to go. I'm going forward, but it seems like all of us, we are learning. One of the most significant tasks that has challenged to most of the people in practice is in the form of basic education, in higher education, where all of us basically in basic education, you can see they are there, they are going to school, but with higher education, this issue of online learning, teaching and learning and assessment has been an adopted issue that we call the new normal that we have. In this context, what I have observed is that, hello?
Prof, ma'am, are you on the first slide, or are you still changing slides?
I'm still here on the describing the context.
Okay, all right, no problem. I thought maybe you forgot to change slides. Sorry for that.
No, I'm running to the last slide. Then there we talk about the new normal. Teaching and learning has been challenging. Continuous assessment and teaching of summative assessments has been more to all of us. Then I'm going to reflect on issues of this, saying what are the things that is challenging, because I described the what we have as challenges. One of the things that I used to do, all of us, we know face-to-face, it's easy, you write on whiteboard and you can give them activities, and from there they can do activities and respond to activities. Now is a different story. We need to bring the students into that interactive online teaching or assessment. What do we do with that? Then that is one of the things that we had to do. My module is electronics, as I said, and most of the things that we do basically it's calculations. Then when you do x, it's x squared. It's an x squared. And most of the time when we used to teach that, you will find that it becomes much easier when you do it face to face. But coming to online, you have to teach, you need to give continuously and continuous assessment after each and every focused task. But that is one of the issue that we have. And one of the challenging issues that I observed through the online, it was part of cheating. How do we deal with issues of cheating, which it becomes much easier for the students to do, and it's very hard for us to detect if whether the student has been teaching or not. You may think about thinking of open book test, but now I'm saying if we have mathematical concepts that has to be related, how do you deal with cheating from that? You may change the values, but you don't change the formulas. How to deal with that? And that is one of the issues that for me on this part of cheating, I'm still battling with this, and I hope this will come as one of the discussions that we will have continuously. What type of the questions are you going to ask? Are you going to ask X times X is there? Are you going to change the value? The students open the book and just see how you calculate you look at, he has to look at the steps that has to be followed. Is there? Then it means the student can be able to copy and just substitute the numbers. Then it means that we need to change the types, how we now change our questions. How do we question? How do we formulate our question? It's online. And we talk about issues of interactive when we are doing assessment. How do we deal with that? At some point, what I did, I said, oh, it's become difficult because now I need to get them to respond. And you cannot allow them, all of them to post. Others, they may post, but others, they cannot. But you cannot say they must present their answers. There must be another way. And what I did in terms of this interactive, we have our WhatsApp group, and I said all the students, they need to post their answers on the WhatsApp group when they look at what we are doing. Although, remember, the challenge now is become monitoring. How do you monitor if all the students are really participating? If I have, for instance, I had 32 students, how do you manage and monitor that each and every student is participating? What is more challenging again is that I don't know these students. They've been in the previous classes. I haven't taught them before. I don't even know them. Then now they come to the new class. Then those are some of the challenges that are facing. Hopefully in different platform and discussions that we will have will allow us to come up with ways of coming to assist, because this is a way to go. We are not going back. Come with the ways of doing that. Then what are these mathematical concepts? As I indicated, my subject is more mathematical concept that has to deal with calculations. But how do I ask mathematical questions that the student cannot do that? At some point, what I did as sharing one of my experience from that, I asked, I had to give the students a formula, and I have to ask them how are they going to apply? How does this formula assist them to in a certain scenario? And they have to apply that formula in a certain scenario that I gave them. And you can see that now I have moved the level of taxonomy from one level to another, which the students, they are not used to, number one, which they have never been used to do the mathematical calculation, explaining issues of formulas. And those are some of the challenges that I had, although it's continuous and we still have to work on that. Assessing while following the program, what to do, what do you do? CHE has a program that has been indicated that it will be online, and this is how the Bloom taxonomy in this level of students will be attended to. And but now you need to change the the way you ask questions. Therefore, it means that the level of Bloom taxonomy move. What they have to describe, now they have to apply, now they have to analyze, now they have to critically analyze, which is a level. They are on third year or fourth year. How do you deal with those challenges? And these are some of the things that I battled with when I of assessment or questioning. Reconstructing, what do we think we need to do? And reconstructing, what are the things that we need to think of? Firstly, we need to think of facilitation mode. I remember the speaker who talked about the issues of saying, how do you prepare your classroom? Then those are some of the things that you need to think of, meaning that if you have a YouTube video that plays for 10 minutes, doesn't mean that you prepare it for 10 minutes. It may take you 3 to 4 hours to prepare it. Then how are you going to assess that one? That is another thing that you have to come up with. Then the questioning on the classroom assessment. If you are giving them a YouTube video, how do you design an online assessment or continuous assessment in the classroom that will be able to link the classroom questions with the test and examination question? Then those are some of the things that I tried to some extent, but I'm telling you, this is still a challenge. Hopefully others, they would share with us their experience on what is happening, how did they do it. Think about the mode of assessment. We need to think about the mode of assessment, if whether they have to write or they have to speak or present. But if we have to talk about the examination, they have to sit down and write. But what is it going to be writing, coming with issues of ethics? Are ethics going to be attended to? Are plagiarism going to be attended to? And we talk about the protoring. How are we going to deal with issues? You can come up with some protoring where you come up with prototypes where they have to present, but are those things going to assist us in presentation? And this is my last presentation. And colleagues, thank you very much for this, listening to my presentation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Prof. MS Ramaligela. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly.
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your very insightful experiences. Obviously, adapting to the new normal, your plagiarism, cheating, your modes of assessments, your exams, your formative, your summative assessments, your anonymity of students, your proctoring, all these are actually, recontextualizing and reconstructing your curriculum to, from a face-to-face to a online mode. It's actually a huge and tedious task, in fact, and we conquer with it. I'm sure none of them in this audience are actually not experiencing any of these things. In fact, thank you so much for the insightful experience, ma'am. We are all together. We are all in this, in fact. From the audience, I would like to open up the floor for any questions. Please show by raising your hands. Is there any questions? Okay, in the absence of any questions, yes, Nyando.
Okay, I think this was a very interesting sort of like a presentation.
Yes.
I think it brought quite a lot of things that all of us are kind of like going through. I'm just interested to know from Prof whether she had an opportunity to maybe engage with the students in terms of understanding their experience also throughout this process.
Prof. Prof. Ramaligela. I think Prof is the connection is poor. Prof Ramaligela, can you hear us? Nyondo, I think she's still on the floor, but I think
yeah, I think the connection might be.
Yes. Okay. I think we'll wrap up this session. Nyondo?
Yes. Thank you, Bibin. I'm sorry for hijacking your session, by the way.
No. Please carry on.
Okay. So, colleagues, what had happened in actually in room 1, there was one speaker who did not turn up. As a result, the program had to be brought forward. So, in a nutshell, the workshop is currently going on in the main room session. However, I would just like to make you aware that we are going to be taking a break, and would then join the main room session, which is room 1, at about 10 to 4. I know in the program it's written 25 to 4, at about 10 to 4. And then we will then be engaging with Prof. Mishra. Apologies about that, colleagues. There is a bit of a difference in the time zone. Prof. Mishra is from the state of Arizona in the United States. And as such, at that time, I think it would still be around about 6:30 or 7 or so. So we'll just give him some time, and then we'll join the session at about 10 to 4. And I believe that session would start immediately at 4 o'clock. I'm not sure whether we understand that, colleagues, or do you want us to reshare the link for the main room again, so that if we had challenges, earlier on, we could rectify those?
Yes, please. I think you can, on the chat, please share the link for the room 1 session, so that probably we can actually, as colleagues, we can actually come back to the session and join in full, if possible.
Okay. Let me do that. I will post this. I'm just copying the link, colleagues. I'll post it in the chat quickly for you.
No problem. So, colleagues, in the room 2 session, we are hereby done. So our room 2 session is ended right now. So probably you can move on to room session 1, where Nyondo is going to post the link where we initially came through. There is sessions going on still. Actually, there's workshops going on. So probably we all can move on to room 2 session. And after that, Prof. Punya Mishra from the state of Arizona from America will be actually presenting his presentation probably around 4 o'clock, 10 to 4 or 4 o'clock, in fact. Thank you for joining our sessions, and thank you for from different parts of South Africa. Thank you so much again. Thank you for being part of our Technology with Summit. Without you, it would have never been a success. Thank you so much.